It's the Rangers Journal now.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday night's Rangers Journal. Don't be confused. This is a Rangers Journal Q&A show, which is often a Thursday night. But we've changed it to a Tuesday because Thursday night is our what, guys? What's next Thursday night?
Game night.
Europa night. This Thursday night's a Europa night. That's that song in it in the advert. So there'll be post-match stuff and stuff on Thursday for the game. So tonight's we're going to do a question and answer. I'll briefly introduce. So I'm Gary. I'm your host. We have an all-new star lineup here. Never been together. Never been in the same room. On this, so they'll get to know each other as much as you're getting to know them as we go around. So I'm going to start saying hello to Ross. Ross, you're relatively new. So how are you today?
I'm good, Gary, mate. I'm good. How's yourself?
Good. It's been a busy day at work and rushing about and then back on the pod for there. How about yourself, Stevie?
Good evening, mate. Good evening, lads. Good evening, everybody. I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
I'm doing well. It's hopefully some good chat about Rangers. We'll rattle through a number of questions as many as we can. And Dino, always late at the end. I do listen to a lot of your pods and you're always just rushing in right at the last minute.
and the nicky time, I just finishing my tea and putting my Rangers top on. Always the same, mate.
So tonight's obviously, I suppose I was thinking when we were starting there. So obviously things have been different the last couple of weeks, slightly better than they were this time last month, around about this last month. If I was to ask you about your Rangers barometer, is from a scale of 1 being still in the doldrums, miserable and wanting to complain about everything, through to 10 being hyper and happy and desperate for the next game to come. Where are we, Ross?
Probably in the last week it's went for a 4 to maybe about a 6.
Based on what?
Just a couple of victories. It's amazing how a couple of wins can change your opinion a bit. A couple of decent performances. I thought it was the first half an hour at Tannadice we played well, and then I thought at the weekend against Dundee we showed some really good spells of football, and we could have actually probably won it more convincingly. So it's went better than what it's been, I think.
No, I agree. Steve, yourself?
Aye, mate. I'd say about 6 or 7. It's amazing what a wee bit of patience and like 3 or 4 weeks in football makes the difference. I've been quite consistent at the start of the season. I thought it was a really difficult start, and it's fine margins. The qualifiers, away Old Firm game at Parkhead, really difficult start. New players and everybody's starting to settle in now, and it's pretty much gone as I expected. They're coming on. Style of football's coming on. So yeah, I'm very optimistic. I was optimistic a few weeks ago, despite everything. We're back at Ibrox, so yeah, I'd say a solid 7 right now.
Good. And Dino, last but not least, what about you?
I'm pretty much the same as Ross. After obviously the Old Firm and then getting 2 victories and clean sheets, it's quite it changes the mood for me. And just it's going to give the defence confidence as well as the forward players, and having players like Bajrami come in, and I mean just wee things like he played 2 quality passes in the final third, and that's something that we've been starved of for a long time. And then seeing Igaman come on and seeing the touchy class that he's got about him, so it does give you a wee bit of a boost in terms of things looking on the brighter side for us.
Yeah. I suppose there's a lot of stuff about boardrooms and chief execs and all these other things, but fundamentally, if you're winning games, that's really all we care about, isn't it? That's why you support a football team. And the noise dies down on about it unless you've been watching the Craig White interview and other things that have been happening across the pods recently. There's lots of questions. I'm going to pick one first, right? This is slightly controversial by our very own Cammy. If you could pick one player from across the city, and I don't know any Partick Thistle players, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure. If there's any of your I'm presuming. I suppose I don't necessarily want to pick a player from the city, but if there's one style of player or one type of player that you think that we are lacking still, that would make that difference, and add that one bit of sprinkle of dust, gold dust. Dino, what about yourself? Come with you first.
It's a tough one because they've got quality all. Let's be honest, quality all over the park. They've won the league however many years in a row and whatnot. And I would probably take somebody like Maeda. He just seems to be there for them, and does he's caused us problems. He's fast. He's gets type of player I think that we would really benefit from. He doesn't really seem to be injured as much these days as well, so he's quite consistent. Yeah, made it for me.
Right. And we're going to do this quickly because I don't want to spend too much time talking with him. So, Stevie, type of player.
Just really goes against my nature, but I just got a guy they've just signed, the young Engels, is it? He looks absolute quality. Really top looking player. I'd take him. Plus, he's not playing for that long, so you can get him earlier.
Yeah. He's at £10 million. He should get you something decent, you think, but if we had that money. And Ross.
I'm going to end up getting cancelled after the pod here before I've even really started my career on here. But I'd take Callum McGregor every day. I think he just brings so much to them on the park and off the park. I think that he just always seems to be a guy that just sits and dictates the play. We always talk about how you need to get a guy man marking him, and it never ever seems to work for us. He's just always there to take the ball, recycle it, turn. He dictates how they play all the time. He's been the guy that's replaced Brown, and I know we all didn't like Brown, but he's replaced him as the leader in that team, and he's the guy that drives them forward. And I know we've had a lot of discussions as a support about how our captain deals with things, but he's the Celtic captain, he's the leader, and everything goes through him. And I think he's got a lot of attributes that I think we still miss in a footballer.
No. Cheers for that, Ross. Right, I was going to say like and subscribe, but I think given we've talked about Celtic for 2 minutes, I don't imagine now's the time to do it. So we'll come back to that later on.
Sorry.
We'll encourage that. There's a question here I've seen from our very own captain, as you were talking there, just moving seamlessly along. When do you expect Igi Mari to get more minutes? And I suppose the question would be, should we be expecting him to get more minutes now? And I'm going to come to Stevie first on that one.
I think they're managing him really well. Just like end the games, last 20 minutes, 30 minutes, he's just building it up slowly. I think he's managed them perfectly. He's so impressive, for the first even the Old Firm defeat. He only came on for the last 20 minutes, but it was a proper spark. It was like, wow, what a player this guy looks already. To me, he's like the whole package. He's physically strong, he's quick, he's got a good touch, he's direct. I think just maybe give him 45 at the weekend. I think it was Hibs. I mean, might play Europe, but definitely, play a bit more minutes against Hibs. Just keep building it up, and then maybe it's difficult because we've got the international break after next weekend, which I think is a nightmare because we're getting decent momentum. Hopefully plays some part, maybe even 45 against Hibs, a couple of goals even. It's good that we've got these 2 European games. We've got games at Ibrox domestically after the next 2 European games, so that's a good opportunity to get them more minutes there.
So thinking of the European game, Dino, there's obviously one of the things we've talked about is the fact that Dessers' hold-up play isn't necessarily as good as his goal scoring. Probably best to put it. Whereas Igi Mari seems to be more that style of player. Do you think he would suit a European game more than the probably domestic game in a lot of cases?
Aye, definitely. I think that's a very accurate analysis to make. However, I think, as just Steve alluded to there, we will see him build up minutes, getting drips and drabs here until he's ready to start and stuff. And I don't think that's going to be anytime soon. We're probably talking end of October maybe before that actually happens. So, and you're right, Stevie, the international break is an absolute nightmare because you just want him to be getting these minutes, and so there's going to be a further delay. Hopefully we'll have some bounce games and he gets 60, 90 minutes in these bounce games whilst if he's known international duty or that. Do you know what I mean? So use that sort of time that we have to build his fitness up, and I think once he is going to be match fit and he's scoring, and as you said, Gary's hold-up play, bringing others into plays, night and day difference, and that's the type of thing I think is Clement is wanting from his striker. So it's going to be good to see the competition, and him being so raw and young, he's going to be hungry for that shirt. So I think the sort of last 3 months of the year at Rangers is going to could be quite exciting with that competition up front for sure.
I think, Ross, then coming to that, just it's following on from that a little bit. You've obviously got Dessers, who is probably predominantly a goal scorer, irrespective of the amount of chances he may miss, but he's predominantly a goal scorer. You've got Agamani, who looks more of a all-round player, potentially not with the same amount of goals. And Danilo, if and when he's fit, offering another option, I suppose. I'm thinking, can you see where the club is starting to get to with that different variation in players, strikers and positions, and they can offer different solutions?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the problem is that because the over-reliance on Cyril Dessers, because of the long-term injuries we've had to Danilo, that he's had to play in. You're talking about guys that play games that they're suited to, whereas Dessers has had to play in every single game, regardless of whether it's against, you know, tougher defences himself in Europe or whatever. So it's been really, it's actually been quite unfair on him. And even to then, he has still delivered goals, which he's been paid to do. I was actually reading a thing earlier on his stats that I think whilst he's been at Rangers, he's essentially been a 1-2 domestic striker, which is probably what you would really want from a guy like that. But at the same time, we do always talk about the chances he misses. I think Igmani, all he really needs is that first goal. I think once he gets that first goal, the people that everybody's already bought into him, I think, a lot of support. But once he gets that goal, I think we could really be onto something special there. And Danilo, I feel bad for Danilo, but you know, it's one of those guys who spent a lot of money on him, and if you can't get that over-reliant, if you can't rely on him, then you know, I think we'd maybe be entitled to think that we could get somebody else in.
Yeah. And I suppose that's the point. He should be the first choice striker at the end of the day. A £6 million player should have been. Injuries have curtailed that and made it not the case. Unfortunately, I think you said Dessers has been left to carry a lot of the load. But certainly Agamani's impressed all of us the last 2 or 3 games. Whatever, he's probably played about 90 minutes at most over the 3 games, but it certainly looks like he's got a certain level of skill, strength, ability and awareness that will help going forward. So I personally don't think he'll get a lot of game time yet. I think he's still going to be a bench player majority of times, you know, and maybe the home games against St Johnstone and teams like that is where he starts to come into the game. Wherever, no disrespect to St Johnstone, I felt bad there. Should take that back. But some of those teams, and then the Dessers is scoring. Was that 7 goals in 9 games? Is that right? That be right? I can't remember and a couple of assists. He's going to keep it short, isn't he? And there's been that many Dessers debates. I don't think we'll have that just now. We'll move on over the period of time. So there's a couple of questions here about. And it kind of links with this. So from Camby saying, if you could sign more Scottish players, after young Scottish players, over the success of Connor Barron, do you think we should? And if there were, name what one would you sign? So, Stevie, come at you first on that. If there was one young Scottish player, well, one should you? And second, who would it be?
I'd kind of bat that back and just say Bailey Rice. He's there. He's at the club. I really want to see him play minutes before Christmas. We've got a lot of football coming up after this international break. You know, it's pretty regular Sunday. So before we look at, I know there's Watson that come on, it's really impressive. There's other players, but to me, like, I'm really quite chuffed with the things are going, like the progress, the signings. But I really want to see Bailey Rice given a chance because he's so much talent there. He's only 17. I think he's our best young midfielder since Barry Ferguson. So to me, we've already got a guy right there. So give him his chance, give him his minutes. Much like they're doing with Agaman, you know, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes here or there. I could just see him coming in and really, you know, taking the bull by the horns and being an influential player pretty soon.
So what do you think the reason is that he's not had much this season at all? I think he came off the bench maybe one of the pre-seasons, if I remember rightly, but he's been very much anonymous in some ways, not seen.
I mean, I guess our midfield is pretty. I think it's pretty strong. You've got Barron, Diamondi, you know, in the middle there. But he's didn't come on at the end of the day. Like we've said before, he lives and dies with his decisions. But maybe he thinks he's just too young. I hope it's not the case. He's got the talent. Yeah, I'd love to see him in there, but hopefully sooner or later that will happen.
No. What about you, Dino? Do you think we should be signing more young Scottish players? And if you could think of one off the top of your head, who would you'd like to see? Who would it be?
Yeah, I've been very vocal on this pod about us signing Scottish players and, you know, resonating with all Rangers fans that successful Rangers teams have always had a good core of Scottish players in them. And player for me, I'd like to see is Lennon Miller. I think he's a generational talent. I really do. And going back to what you were just saying there, Gary, about thinking that he's too young, we've actually been quite lucky to be seeing all these young Scottish players coming through, playing for Motherwell and all these teams that they're getting first team appearances. So if they're good enough to come in and play, then, why isn't Bailey Rice, if he's, everybody at Rangers says he's got a really fantastic future ahead of him, and all you hear is good things about him, how he trains, how he is as a person, things like that. So what is holding him back?
So I suppose just following on for that, sorry, James, cracked up a wee bit there. So following on for that, I suppose one of the things that I suppose interests me is if he's a generational talent, I'm just being controversial to some extent, why is he still there? And £3 million quid's a drop in the ocean to someone in England, or it's happened to other players. What are we overhyping some of these players in Scotland, or is it just is there a reason? I'm curious when I think about it.
No, not at all. Not overhyping players at all, because I think over the last maybe 5 years, maybe not as much as that, we've seen good young Scottish players going abroad, which have, been hyped exactly the same. But as first team football, the deciding factor, is he going to be able to go to England, and is he going to be getting guaranteed the amount of minutes that he's getting at Motherwell? So I don't know if that's a deciding factor, but every time I've watched the lad, I've just been really impressed with him. And there's many Rangers fans that feel the same, and I know people that support different teams who've all highlighted how good this player is by just watching him themselves. So there could be a lot of mitigating factors as to why no other teams came in. But you're right, £3 million is a drop in the ocean to most teams out with Scotland. So yeah, maybe perhaps it is first team football that's keeping him at Motherwell, and serving his apprenticeship to then go on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, and it would be a bad thing. There's lots of players that came across down to England for 2 or 3 million, never seen again.
Exactly.
I suppose what it does lead me on to, so Stevie's talked about Bailey Rice and Dale's talked about Lennon Miller, both central midfielders. And I'm now, I suppose, thinking then, so on Sunday we play Nicholas Raskin, or Raskin, or however you say it. Couldn't go off the bench, 3-0 up, or a couple of goals up. Where do you see his future, Ross? Or do you think there is concerns around his future at the club?
I think there is. To be honest with you, I think that when Clement came in, Nicholas Raskin would have been a guy that could have built his team around. I think when Raskin was signed, he came in with a hell of a lot of hype as a good, young, talented player from Belgium, which has been a country that over the last 10, 15 years have produced a hell of a lot of good footballers. And there was a lot of hype behind him. But since he's came, Nicholas Raskin's had good spells under different managers, but I still think that there could be more. I don't know if there's been a falling out, there's been attitude issues, or if it's maybe just an issue with. I know there's been injuries. He did get injured in pre-season as well, but the fact that he's now back, he's playing. But I just don't think there's something there with Clement. I think he likes Barron. I think we all like Barron. I think Diamante's a guy that when he gets going, he can be a top footballer as well. And I don't know if Raskin can get into that double pairing with him. If he changes it and can move Diamante, he can play different positions. But then, are you going to get the best out of him? I'm not sure. But then you want to have, and as Dino said, Dino's talked about good young Scottish footballers. Stevie's brought up Rice as well. Are these guys going to be just as good? Are they just as good as Raskin? Do you know what I mean? Can they be better than Raskin? I think Bailey Rice could be better than Raskin. I think Lennon Miller could be better than Nicholas Raskin. And in terms of what we talk about in Europe, homegrown players, I think it would be better off Nicholas Raskin moving on in the future.
Mm-hmm. No, that's interesting. It certainly seems. I don't know if else, Stevie, you get any thoughts on Raskin there?
I kind of agree with what Ross has said. I don't dislike Raskin as a player. I like the fact that he moves the ball quickly. He's got good kind of awareness. He keeps the tempo up, but I don't see much beyond that. I think he's a great ball winner. I think Connor Barron actually does a better job at what he does than what I think he offers more. Which is a shame. I mean, maybe if he gets a run, he might prove us wrong. But yeah, I think Gordon Barnes definitely better in that position.
Yeah, no. I'm going to change tack slightly. Looking at the questions, there's a number of questions around the boardroom, and I don't want to spend a lot of time around the boardroom, but there's various things around the stuff that from John Gilligan, his press conference, 17 minutes or so press conference he had a couple of days ago. There's obviously, I'm not going to put because I'm sure none of you have watched yet, but Craig White done an hour and a half interview on some podcast, didn't he? Have you not seen this, Stevie?
I heard about it, mate. Aye, but
I've not watched it. So I've not watched it. I know what I talk about it, but I suppose there's a lot of interest. There might be some interest around it. And obviously, there's Dave King's been kicking about with lots of opinions about lots of things over the last couple of weeks. So I suppose I'm interested just to get your take on the board shenanigans. Would that be the best way to put it? Stevie, I'll come to you first.
I think Gilligan gave a brilliant interview. I thought it was a great press conference. I thought it was really measured. He was transparent, very kind of thoughtful. I thought it was a really good update. I kind of caught a wee bit of Talk Sports White and Jordan this morning in the opening. He phrased it in more boardroom turmoil or meltdowns at Rangers, and I was like, that's the best update we've had for the board in ages, YouTube. I was quite impressed with Gilligan. Really the right man for the job right now. So to me, it was a good update. I've not got my head buried in the sand. I understand we need a CEO, amongst other things, a new permanent chairman, so there's work to be done. But he, to me, is like a reassuring presence. So, yeah, I was really chuffed with what Gilligan had to say. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. Ross, I'll come to you. What were your thoughts then, obviously, on Gilligan and maybe Dave King in some ways over the last week?
Well, we know obviously that they've both stated that they've got a good friendship and they've got a good working relationship. Bearing in mind that Dave King and John Gilligan saved us when there was other people that were literally ripping stationery and everything out of the offices at Ibrox as they were getting kicked out. These guys saved us, and they deserve a hell of a lot of respect for that. But at the same time, at this stage and the progress that we had made to get to the league title again and to get to Seville, we shouldn't be in a position within 4 years after that of John Gilligan having to come and be our temporary chairman. We shouldn't be at that stage. The fact that it's got to this point, I think, is absolutely ridiculous. And I know John Gilligan's a good Rangers man, and he's a smart guy. Sometimes I think he gets a bit slated because of I think he's too to the point, which is a good thing as a person. But the fact that he said that in his interview that he's like, I've come out of retirement for this. You shouldn't have to come out of retirement to try and steady the ship. He says I want to have a CEO by Christmas. You know what I mean? That's nearly the best part of a year. Without a CEO, that's for a club and for a business at the level of Rangers. It's no good enough, to be honest with you.
No, 100%. It's a person that leads the organisation, so and it's a business. You need a chief exec. Do you think actually, and it just crossed my mind when you were talking, I think John Gilligan, I kind of thought quite a lot of the questions were trying to catch him out and obviously get media bait, but also I think there was a little bit of snobbery against him because he talks quite plainly. I'm going to come to you, Dino, see what your thoughts, but I thought he talked quite plainly, quite not man of the people for the best way, but I think there was a lot of snobbery maybe around him not necessarily being this. I can't try to get the right word to say, if you know what I mean.
Or being.
No,
yes.
But he talks like a fan,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't he? And it's actually quite refreshing to see. From a obviously Rangers fans' point of view, and I can see why that doesn't bode well with other people. So who want to, I guess, as you said, the snobbery. So yeah, he speaks like a fan. We can all relate to that. We can, give him a full backing, and as Ross had said there about, him coming in and things like that, and he's friends with Dave King and didn't hold back on Dave King. And I tell you what, I've got massive respect for that, because he quite easily could have, maybe didn't say what he said, but he was quite direct in what he thought of King and how King's been acting. So that kind of made my ears stand up, if that makes sense. To think, well, if this guy's doing that with one of his friends who back in 2015, etc. I'm like, well, I've got full faith in him that he is going to do as he says he is, and I think that's something that Rangers fans actually need at the moment. And we all keep saying, and people in the chat, the group chat on the podcast, and what if we were doing well, and if we were sitting top of the league right now, and we were in the Champions League, we wouldn't be bothering about what was going on. So because there's just so much negativity around the club, we've got all this focus on the things that are happening. Yes, we are in a mess, but I believe with John Gilligan steering this ship, he is going to be the right man to get the right people in, for the people that are only just going to come in for a wee period of time. You know, people are going to be here and stand the test of time.
I agree with that, 100%. He's like a good caretaker for right now. And can I just reply? Curry Muncher said there was too many unanswered questions. He's not going to lay out everything. He can't come on there and like divulge everything they've got planned. Like a normal business wouldn't do that. Rangers isn't a normal business. So you've got to keep some cards close to his chest. That's standard. That's what I feel anyway. I don't know what you think.
So I'll take that question a bit further forward, and I'll start with you, Stevie, on it. So there is a lot of talk, and there's been a lot of talk the last couple of weeks that the board don't tell us enough. And I suppose I'm interested, what do you think the board should tell the fan base? So what sort of stuff is it not telling us? Maybe is the better way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, yesterday was a kind of starting point. He's like, it's like, I'm here now, and this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to look to do. It's like they're not going to give you bullet points at every decision they're going to make. That's just not going to happen. So he's put like a few things, like, yes, we're going to get a CEO, we're going to get this, we're going to do that. That to me is decent business practice. It's like he's kind of starting again where he is, and like what Dino said, he's not going to be there forever, but he's the right guy for right now. Curry Muncher didn't divulge anything. I've been quite vague. Yeah, but would you expect him to say Curry Muncher? You know what I mean? Curry, is that Curry?
Yeah, that was it.
Got some. Start talking about Taverner, man. That'll really wind them up.
Don't mention it. Dino get excited. So, and I suppose that go back to the same question to you then, Ross. I suppose I'm always intrigued with this thing about the board not telling us enough or not sharing enough information. What should they be sharing, or what more can they be sharing? Or
I think because the kind of disarray that it's been in, we want to know everything that's going on, and I don't think that they're going to turn around and say, right, well, today we've got 3 interviews for a CEO and we've spoke to a guy who maybe wants to be the chairman, but that's it. I understand that you can't come out and tell us everything, but the Rangers board, I think, for a long time have been quite good at only telling us the good stuff, and then when the bad stuff happens, we end up hearing through other means. The last wee while we've had Dave King making statements through his guys in the media, through other people. That's how we've been finding out these issues. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's probably got to be a little bit of meat in the middle. I don't expect John Gilligan to come out and say, do you know what I mean? I'm going to leave on this day, and by this day we're going to have somebody in. But he came out. I understand the point that the boy's making, that he's been vague, and he's essentially telling us things that we already know. We know we're looking for a CEO. We know he's not going to be there forever, and I understand the annoyance behind that. But if he came out and said, he can't come out and say anything else, because if he came out and said, we're not really struggling, we're not really trying to get somebody in ASAP, we're just going to take it as it is, we'd all be up in arms.
Yeah, as somebody said, they were a PLC. There's certain standards that you need to adhere to, and it might be like, you know what you want to hear, but we're a business, and that's what they're doing. And they are making improvements. The new wage structure, the new signings, not signing Kenny McLean and giving him like a 3-year deal when he's 32-year-old. All these things are positive. Difficult time, but we're going the right direction.
I think.
Sorry, can I just echo that? No, Stevie, you're absolutely spot on. We've spoken about how they've not made decisions, but the whole summer we've had guys going, we need to sign Lawrence Shankland, and he's new in probably the worst form of his career. Is that maybe something we've missed? But we're all tagging the board. Why have we not signed a centre forward?
Yeah.
We've now we spent all the money in Igmani, and we're all like, this looks like a good buy. So I think they need to get some credit that they are making right decisions. I've been guilty of been a little bit impatient and saying, I want to see change, I want to see this, I want to see that. But it's amazing that we're talking earlier on about how results can just kind of take the pressure off a wee bit, and it just gives them a little bit of leeway. And if we go and if we beat Malmo midweek, and if we beat Hibs next week, we'll all be going like, we're on the right path again.
Yeah, absolutely.
and I'll come to Dane on the same thing, but just as that comment says there, win trophies, nobody cares what the board are who they are or what they're doing, and I think probably the key point there. So, Dane, your thoughts on some of this, because it has been going round in circles for the last few weeks at least.
That's pretty much what I said previously. Like, if we're top of the league and in the Champions League, nobody really cares what's going on behind the scenes. So, and how many other football teams out there give their fans what board gives their fans like an articulated dossier of what they're doing? Like, I don't really follow any other football clubs, so I wouldn't know, but I don't actually think that's common practice for clubs to really do that. Fair enough.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say half the teams in the EPL, you didn't even ken who their owners are. Seriously, if you dig deep enough, you find them. But
So, like, I understand the fans' frustrations because, as Ross said, the board, go hiding, and when things go wrong and they're not, and there's no transparency there. I totally get that because I feel that frustration, and it's something I guess that needs to be eradicated from our club. There's somebody that needs to actually be that sort of person up there that, good or bad, takes responsibility. So that's something that needs change, and I think that's an acceptable. I think that's an acceptable thing for us to want. So right now, I just want to focus what's happening on the pitch. I really do, because as you said, Gary, it's been going on for weeks. It's a bit of a saga. It's kind of draining me. It grates on me. That depresses me. We're winning. That doesn't depress me. We're playing Malmo on Thursday in the Europa League. We're back to playing in Europe. I just want us to go to Sweden, get a good result, come back, start getting a bit of momentum, start seeing all these new players coming into the team and, pushing for us having a good end to the year and, in a good place come the next Old Firm game. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I'd agree wholeheartedly. And I'm going to just wind that bit of the board up in terms of, because I think it is, we want to concentrate on football because that's why we're here and that's who we support and that's what we care about. But I suppose that there's just a few interesting points. One, I suppose that Stevie said as well, your businesses only share good news, they don't share bad news. That's how every business works. They're not there to share negative publicity. And it's quite easy for the media and for fans to pick on the things they've done wrong. I don't think anybody complained when the house has been built. I don't think anybody complained when we vastly overspent to win 55. I don't think anybody complained when we started looking at putting a disabled seating in. I think when the team's not winning, basically these become issues. I don't think that any of us would sit there and say there were bad decisions to do them. Might be bad execution at times, but not necessarily the wrong decisions to do them in the first place. I think it's easy as an afterthought to then say they got it wrong because we're not winning. If we win the league, nobody would care. And for there. So I think we'll move on for there because I don't really want to talk about boardroom politics and the stuff that goes with it. We want to focus on the football. And I think Dino said Malmo comes up on Thursday. I've been reliably informed. We've never beaten a Swedish team from our very own Doug, who knows all these things better than we do. But what I got that interesting, I'm going to ask you, Dino, sorry to say we've never beaten a Swedish team. For some reason, I kind of feel Malmo are being built up to being a team that we should be fearing, which kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I watched the podcast for the Malmo guy. I forget his name. I do apologise. And good insight to Swedes, not just them, but Swedish football. And they've been a really good side for the last 14 years in Sweden, and I think they're, champions or going to be champions, or so they're on a high. So I think because of that, and us kind of not on as much of a high, I think that's fair to say. I think that's maybe where the sort of pessimism kicks in because of our stats in playing Swedish teams. But I mean, I think it's a great opportunity for us to actually go play against a completely different side that's not going to be parking the bus and will allow us to play football. And I think this is the type of games that we want to be, challenging and looking to win. And we're Rangers at the end of the day, so that should be a minimum expectation. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for us to actually go and showcase what we can do. And as I said, the wee sort of tweaks to the team, players coming in, players forming relationships, that's only going to get better in time. And we want that stability. So let's take advantage of that. And the team that started at the weekend is, I would say, it's probably going to be 90% the same team. I know Jeffrey's obviously suspended, but it's going to be pretty much the same start 11, in my opinion. And that's something that we lacked last season, was stability, continuity in the team, because we were always getting injured and this, that, and the next thing. So this is a perfect opportunity for us to actually build momentum with the players that are actually performing and making us win the games.
Yeah. I'm looking at the comments as we're talking, Joe. Everybody's still in the boardroom talk, so they'll catch up with us in the back of the football shortly. Steve, we're older, so I'm going to pick you. So Malmo, we played Malmo 3 years ago after 55 on it, and I don't remember at the time us not being quite heavy favourites in both games, even. But again, as we come to now, and Malmo with their most expensive player being 1.6 million, all of a sudden the team that we need to do our best to try and get a draw against. I suppose your thoughts on it?
Yes, it's a good. I think it's a good tie. I quite like playing the Scandinavian teams. I know we've covered it. We've never beaten one, and not a Swedish team anyway. But I think they're obviously well into their season. I think they played about 24 games. They're going to clinch the title. They're well into their season, so it'll be a tough game. But I think it's a game that we can go into and try and take something. You think back to last season, Betis away, Benfica away, probably our two best performances, or the two performances that I really enjoyed last season the most. So I don't. To me, it's almost like we kind of throw the shackles off a wee bit in Europe. It's a great platform, European audience, a wee bit less pressure, I feel. And as Dino said, they're not going to park the bus, they're going to try and win the game, which opens it up for our creative players. You mentioned Jeff, they've been suspended. That, to me, that's their biggest blow, because the team's been so settled at the back for the last month, coming along really well. So he's a big miss. He shouldn't be suspended. Covered that already. But I'm really excited for it. I love Europa games. I think they're absolutely brilliant. Look forward to it, and I expect us to go and take something. A draw, to me, would be a good result. If we try and win, even better. With the games that we've got after that, they're all pretty much tougher. So I definitely try and get something on the board Thursday night. Good springboard into the weekend.
So coming at you then, Ross. So how crucial is it that we take at least a point, most likely probably 3 points, to be honest, looking at the rest of the games? And who do you think is the most influential player for us on Thursday, the most important player for us on Thursday?
I think getting after a great start in Europe would just be the perfect start for us. I think because we've had the real disappointment of getting beat off Dynamo Kiev, and then not even just missing out on even we'll talk about Europe being a great financial thing. We missed out on the extra money from playoff games and all that nonsense as well. Malmo, they're in their season, but we're now kind of 2.5 months into our season as well. So you can't stand and say we're still getting the cobwebs off all that. Malmo's a beautiful city. I think the support will get there as well. They'll go out and enjoy it as well. If we can get there and we can play the game that we can play, there's absolutely no reason why we can't take 3 points. I know I seen a tweet earlier on it was actually from Malmo's official account, talking about when we played them the first time. It was the season that it all went Pete Tong. And then the following time we played them, they put us out the one Cholak scores, we ended up going to Seville. So, at the end of this season, it could be an absolute glory season, or it could be a complete disaster if you believe omens, if you're superstitious. But I think in terms of the game, I'm really looking forward to seeing Bajrami kick into gear. I think he's really started to look like a player that can, if he can get going, we could be on to something really special with him.
No, he certainly looks a great assist for that third goal. Beautiful ball, first time pass. I'm just looking at his team sheet, and I'm not going to pick particularly on the team for Thursday, but there is a question when you ask. Sterling played the midfield, got hooked after 45 minutes on Sunday. I suppose I'm interested really on your views on Sterling and where he fits within the team, the club, the squad, whatever it may be, because it's certainly, he's to my mind, he's a pretty shaky start to the season, and this midfield superstars maybe not quite hitting that mark anymore. I don't,
Yeah, I think that's his midfield performances has run its course. He's been very good, and when he's been called upon to play whatever position it is, right wing, left wing, centre mid, but I think that was a right eye opener for us all to see that he's done his bit for that position. Let's just try and utilise him in what's meant to be his strongest position at right back, and have him playing solely at right back, and not have him going playing this position one week, then another position another week, and I see what CJN55 is saying about obviously playing him at left back on Thursday, but I'm liking the balance of a left-footed left back, and we've got Robbie Fraser there, who's, he's good enough to get a new contract, and so I would look to be playing him at left back, and Sterling keeping him away from centre midfield, and if it means he's going to be a squad player on the bench and filling in at right back when needed, then so be it. But I don't want to see him at centre midfield, to be quite honest with you. He doesn't have the positional sense. He's very good at, tracking ball down and winning the ball and things like that. And he's, he just misses a couple of things I think you need for that position to be able to play it, because he's no box to box, is he? He's not going to be a goal threat. Do you know what I mean? So I think we're better off utilising him as a right back, and giving the opportunity to somebody else to come in at centre midfield, like Stevie touched on, Bailey Rice, things like that. Raskan, who's getting paid by us as a central midfielder. I'd prefer to see him playing in his natural position as to having Sterling come in. So,
no, I agree, and I suppose Robbie Fraser's an interesting one. Just Dino's staying on that. I suppose the question becomes, why do we have him if we're not intending to play him at any point? We're going to shoehorn in somebody else that's not that position to cover it when we're two are out. It seems to defeat the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So, another one on the jump shot, we'll come to this. Dale Mandy's played at left back, didn't he? And over in Denmark a few times. Or was it Denmark? No, Norway. I think they played. So, again, go back to Ross for yourself. Sterling, I suppose, he's where he fits in the team now, I suppose, going forward.
I think he's been a victim of his own versatility. I think this idea that he can play everywhere. There was a few games last season where he was getting played in the right wing, and I thought it was just a little bit of a waste of time for him, to be honest with you. I thought it was more detrimental to him than anything else. If he's a right back, play him at right back. I know he's not going to play all the time, but we're at a stage where we're talking about Tavernier needing to get rested. There was no reason why he couldn't have played at the weekend and given Tavernier a chance to rest before having to play midweek as well. But I thought at the start he looked decent in midfield, but when there's games at home to Dundee, he can't be playing the midfield because his work with the ball isn't good enough. When we're going to have 65-70% of possession, it's not good enough for him. But with a game like that away in Europe, there's no reason why he can't be playing somewhere within the back line, because he's good at tracking runners, he's good at winning the ball. As long as he wins the ball and gives it to somebody else, and if he plays on the left hand side, which is, I think the guy that put the comment up thinks he will play. He needs to be talked to the game proper, needs to really, really help him, talk him to the game, talk his positional sense, and he'll need to get help from whoever plays on the left-hand side, whether it's Bajrami, whether it's Cortez, whoever. But not to say he's not got attributes, but I think there comes a point now that he really needs to have a position and he needs to stay in it for his own benefit and for the team's benefit as well.
No. I'm going to move on, because unless you've got Stevie, and particularly you want to say on that, but is there anything you desperately want to communicate on that?
Sorry, my cat's trying to get a word in there. I'd stick with. I like Sterling. I think I'd keep him in midfield. To me, he's a great option. The games last season, especially away in Europe, Benfica, he was outstanding. So I wouldn't write him off completely. Came a bit of time, but I agree he is a right back. I agree with that. And Robbie Fraser definitely left back, 100%.
So we're going to come to the last question now, and this is probably slightly different. There's a question posed earlier on, and I'll try and mix that together with a few other questions. And it was, if you could sign any 3 non-British players. I was talking about past and present, but I suppose I'm going to go with present. Any 3 non-British players within realism, something you could think that would change you from potential title winners to guaranteed title winners coming in the season. who would it be? You know, and you only give one at a time. I'll give you time to think about the other one. So maybe give us one, Ross, first. Make you on the spot, back around and things to get if there's any others.
That's a hard one. Do you know what I mean? In terms of guys that you talking about, guys that we could sign.
Just one player. I mean, I suppose if you were able to say, I want to put one player in the team, whoever it may be, but not prime Ronaldo or anything like that, but something you think make the difference.
I mean, prime Ronaldo would be if only we had that in 1998. You know, when we were trying to sign him to play in Europe and all firm games, that would have been top tier. They've been the greatest ever. In terms of the guys that are playing just now, I mean, it's obvious. You know, everybody would want Haaland in their team. Or I think Bellingham's the best footballer on the planet just now. I think he's the best midfielder that you could buy. Just now, and I think he would honestly change any team into a Champions League winning team.
So I'm getting grief for the question, I'm slightly changing it. That's the host license. He can change the question to suit. So in terms of yourself, Stevie, if you sign one player just now that we think would make the difference from also ran to first past the post.
Any current player in the world?
I
guess it would be Haaland would be my pick. He's an obvious one. I really like Odegaard at Arsenal. I know he's injured, but I think he's one of the best 2 or 3 players in the world just now for his creativity. Just he sees passes that nobody else sees.
Who did you say, Stevie? Who did you
Odegaard.
say? Oh.
So, Dino, yourself, if you could sign any player from, I don't know, from Scotland, then you'll just pick you. I'll narrow your focus a little bit. Any one player in Scotland today, not the opposition team that we know about, because we've already covered that and don't want to end the bad note. From any other player, any other team, who would it be?
Lawrence Shankland.
Oh, there we go. We needed to bring him back. It's been too long without him. I'm assuming it's not for his goals, then, do you know?
Well, Hearts have already been scoring many goals this season. The manager's just been sacked, so I'm going to suggest it's because of that. So I think new manager comes in. I think we'll see Lawrence back in the goals, back in amongst the goals.
No, I think I've not seen anything of Hearts, but I'm assuming that they've been struggling badly across apart from against us, obviously, when they picked up their only point in the season, unfortunately. So, as we kind of look to wind up, I think obviously for those that are listening, hit the like, subscribe, follow all the channels. There's Facebook posts every day. There's information coming out. You cannot get enough of your Rangers Journal content. And certainly for us, we cannot keep up with the Rangers Journal WhatsApp chat half the time as well. There's so much coming through; it's unbelievable. So please look out for more. I'm going to come round just if there's anything else. If there's any question you think we didn't cover that you were hoping to talk about today, what is your answer to that question? So I'm just going to let you finish on whatever that is. So I'll start with you, Ross. Was there anything you wanted or hoped to cover that you never get a chance to pontificate about?
No, I think we've obviously kind of got over all the main topics. I know the thing that we've all been talking about this kind of over the last kind of couple of days has been the Bold, and I'm sick to back to thinking about it, to be brutally honest with you. As I said earlier on, to answer the question, we will just see if we get a couple of wins over the next kind of couple of weeks. It'll all die down again, and nobody will be on the backside.
Aye, 100%. Dino, yourself?
I think the one thing I would like to get across is the whole sort of Hagi saga. It's one of the things that I know that is grating on me, and you know, we see him performing well in the B team, which you expect a player of his calibre to be able to do, and you know, we want to be winning our games, and we're all I guess romanced by Hagi, and I'm a massive Hagi fanboy. I'll happily hold my hands up at that. And you know, we can be blinded at times by that in our you know, opinions and judgment and stuff. But I do feel that, you know, he's a very, very expensive B team player, given his weekly wage. So I would just like to see that wage involved in and around the first team squad. I'm not saying he needs to be starting every game. I'm not saying he needs to be playing these certain amount of minutes, but just having his his own, you know, ability and his personality and stuff in and around the first team squad. I mean, he's a man of standards, and we want our standards raised. At Ibrox, standards was a thing that bugged me after the Old Firm game, and I think it bugged a lot of people because it looked like that our standards had dropped. Hadji's standards haven't dropped a second since he got put in the B team squad, and he's going to be a good education for the apprenticeship of the youngsters. But I think it's something that we could be doing with in and around the first team squad. And I know money and all this and the next thing, but I think that extra however many £1,000 a week could, you know, perhaps be a good thing for us.
Yeah. I think Tom most of the same in Hadji. We all like him as a player and as a person. I suppose I'm getting it's a bit like your board debate or something. I'm a bit tired hearing people talk about it. It's just not going anywhere. It's just not moving forward in it. So.
I totally agree with you. Like I'm in the same boat. I'm a huge Hadji fan, but it's a moot point. It's not happening. We need to just put it together. He's not coming back into the team. Manager said it. He's made a decision. Hope I'm wrong, but it's done. My final thing, CGM 55. His team that he put up there. I'm really liking the balance with Bajrami on the left, Cherny on the right, and you've got Cortez. I think there's so many good options where we can interchange. I really like the balance of the team. I like how we're developing. I think it's looking really good.
And I think that's to finish on that point. That is a good thing. The squad is stronger than it's probably been in a while. The younger players look as though they've got a bit of ability about them, and maybe we are looking for. What is it? Colin said October, November time we should be hitting peak form, and maybe we're slowly starting to edge towards that. So, as we come to the end of the show, I'd like to thank you all for your time. So thank you, Ross. Thanks, Davey, and thanks, Dino. And we will now finish for this evening. So every night's a Rangers Journal night. As I've said, like, subscribe, follow, blah, 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 blah. You know what it all is. We're back on tomorrow night with a little bit more of a preview of the Malmo game, so we'll cover more of that. We'll focus on that. I did see lots of comments about the board. That's certainly sparked debate in the comments section, but we did try to keep it to football the majority of the time. And if you're interested in football again, please join us again tomorrow night. So thank you for your time, and every night is a Rangers Journal night.